All right, what's happening, guys? Sub Dynaman here, and I've been doing my homework. So I got a whole bunch of information to put out. I just don't know how about putting it out there yet. So this stuff is pretty tough. This horn response calculator, whatever, it has a lot of information and it could be easily confused. I can make a lot of mistakes, so all this has been pretty difficult to get across, but I want you guys to know that I'm doing my homework and I'm doing my best to check myself when it comes to calculating, getting the numbers looking good, and then real world application. So right now what you're seeing here was a horn that I built way back, I think about 2021. I built 3 horns exactly with the same dimensions except for the overall height. So I built one for 4/8, which I still have. I built this one right here for 2/10s, and then I built the same another one that was a little bit taller for 2/12s. But what you can see here is that the overall conical dimensions were exactly the same. So if you were to stack these boxes on top of each other, you would see this exact same two-dimensional angles right here. So the only difference with the 2/10s is I actually put in these nice smooth bends right here, whereas the 4/8s, it was just straight, and then the 12s as well, it was just straight. So there was a significant difference having that smoothing right here. Too bad I didn't get to do more testing. Like I said, this was back in 2021. But aside from all that, what I wanted to show you guys was the performance as far as what it actually did. What I realized. I mean, this is four years later. I kind of did it backwards. When I made this box, I just said whatever, threw it together, kind of eyeballed everything, earballed everything, and used my intuition to say, hey, we'll go with this angle, bam, and there we go. And this is what I ended up with. And I did that with, like I said, with 3 boxes. And what I wanted to check, what I wanted to see, was the difference between the cone area and the overall dimensions. But even though all the boxes were pretty much the same, I mean, it was still apples to oranges. But I did get to see or verify that with the 4/8s, it did have a very different curve. I mean, as far as the peak tunings went, they were all the same, but we'll get into that in a second. I'll show you what I mean. But as I went up in cone area, so by the time I got to the 2/12s, I noticed a significant difference in the way those peaks kind of worked, at least for this box in particular. But that's also what I want to get into, is really making sure that when you do make a design, that you understand that there's major trade-offs between SPL and bandwidth, and that doesn't necessarily mean you could easily screw it all up and get none of that. And at the same time, if you have a real high-powered sub, you could be totally negating the fact that you even have a good high-powered sub by not being able to achieve full excursion with maximum power transfer. And that's something else we'll get into little by little. So if you pay attention, I'll try to point out some of those things. But anyway, yeah, let's get on to it. So here's the box for the 2/10s, and this is up here just so you could get an idea exactly what you're looking at. And let's go to the horn data. All right. So on horn response, hopefully you guys are familiar with this program. If not, I highly recommend it if you're really into building boxes, or you just want to have fun, or just whatever. If you're into this stuff, horn response, it's free for one, and 2, I think it's probably one of the best. I mean, I haven't really used any of the other programs, mostly because it costs money, but I also think that they don't provide as much real information and are as precise as horn response. But you guys let me know. You guys let me know what program you guys like using, and if it has the variabilities that this program has. But anyway, so you can see this is a representation of that horn. It's just not folded, but it should perform pretty close. You got to remember, guys, that each fold can cause some restrictions. It could cause some reflections within that sound wave, especially if it's a flat 90-degree wall that sound wave is going to hit. It's going to bounce right back. There's going to be loss of energy there. That's why I said that those curves that I put in there made a significant difference. Now, there are going to be cases where you might not notice a difference, but we'll get into that in a later video. Just know that we're trying to represent as closely as we can to a real world scenario and what you would expect if you were to design the box using horn response, and what you'll likely end up with in the real world scenario. So that's what I'm trying to do right now, guys. I'm trying to build a bass reflex box, just a standard ported box for a single sundown 8-inch X8, and I'm trying to compete with my own. That's the other thing too, is I'm not competing with anybody else. I'm just competing with myself, and I'm trying to make sure that my numbers match my real world and my real world matches my numbers, and that I get better at utilizing whatever programs that are available to really know what I'm doing, so that way I can do it on the program first and not waste a bunch of time and get it right once the box is in the vehicle. So, but anyway, let's check this out. Let's look at the power curve. So, based on what I actually did in real world performance, this box at max power, right before XMEC, where you could hear the subs bottoming out, it did a 146 at 30 hertz. And what I want you to see on this curve is this dip right here. So this is a conical horn, so think of like a cone, a road cone. It's just a straight cone, you know what I mean? So where's that picture at? This being pretty much, if you were to not have that bend, it would go just like the picture, just a straight out cone, which I'm sure some of you guys are going, yeah, I know, I get it. But what happens is, with that straight cone, you end up with this huge dip. So you end up with two large peaks, almost like a T-line. A T-line is very big about having two major peaks, and that's because of the shape. The shape is very important when there's moving mass within that shape. It wants to follow that pattern. So anyway, you can see here it has a nice peak right at 30 hertz, which is great. That's what I was it was supposed to be a 29 hertz tune horn, but those smoothings actually raise the frequency. The diaphragm, the fact that it's a 10-inch instead of a 8-inch, yeah, that raised the tuning quite a bit. So we ended up at about 30 hertz, which this predicts quite well. And like I said, I didn't really use horn response. I mean, I kind of used it to get an idea, but this is actually in real world. That's what I got right on the money. Was about 30 hertz, 146 dB, and I was able to hear that it had a low end peak, and anything outside of that low end, so anything 29, 28, 27 hertz, it just significantly dropped off. Same thing with anything above that 40, 50 hertz range was pretty weak. I mean, it was still pretty loud, but it definitely lost a lot of power there. And then there was a significant peak up in that higher double frequency range. So 70 hertz on up was pretty dang loud. But I typically my EQs are cutting out a lot of that higher frequency, so you wouldn't get too much boominess. I don't really like that higher bass. I tend to favor the lows. But if you guys know anything about lows, you gotta add a lot more power, because you gotta overcome a whole bunch of different things in order to get those lows to come through. So this is good for me anyway. Gets me those nice lows. But initially I was trying to go for SPL, even though, like I said, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I built the box as quick as I could, and I wanted to hit some competitions and just have fun with 210s or however, whatever. And I don't even know if I told you guys, but the 210s I used were the Rockville Punishers, the dual 1 ohm. And yeah, so let's look at this. So we're gonna look at the power, and right now this is just modeling half of the horn. I didn't include both subs, but that's what we're gonna do right now. So let's see, I think I want to go parallel here. So now we have two subs. So now this is modeling basically both halves together. And keep in mind, this isn't showing you that cabin gain. So it did perform a little bit different based on that cabin gain. All right, so right now we're at 1,000 watts, and you could already see that we're hitting that about 146 peak right there, right around the 30 hertz, maybe a little bit higher than 30 hertz. And yeah, like I said, so if I would have had this as you know, a modeling program ahead of time, I would have been able to see this and predict, and there we go. And I do believe because of the rise was about I think 2.5 times rise. So even with the 5K Sundown SFB 5K, I'm pretty sure those subs were only seeing about maybe 1,500 watts each. But like I said, with that much rise and that much power, I mean, I was already hitting X mech, so the subs were bottoming out. But I could also play them for a pretty long period of time at a high, you know, high level, and the subs it'd get warm, it'd get pretty hot. I mean, I was doing this in the summer at the time, running the hell out of those, beating the crap out of those punishers, and yeah, it was doing pretty dang good. I wish I still had them. I wish I still had the setup so I can, you know, do more testing on it. But like I said, at the time, 2021, 2022, I was just pushing through and moving. It didn't. What I was expecting was to get 150, and then to me that would have been impressive. I don't know why. At the time, if it wasn't doing 150, I didn't care. So, but that's what we got. And if I would have been able to push them a little bit harder, maybe, you know, maybe I would have been able to get that 150. But the box was my limiting factor at this point, guys. So that's what I want you guys to see. So you can also see when I add in the second sub, this curve went away a little bit. So take that down, you kind of get that higher dip or a deeper valley as opposed to having two subs. So keep that in mind, guys. When you add more cone area in this kind of a situation, it tries to flatten out a little bit more. Now, especially with cabin gain. Now for me, with the cabin gain, I actually lost some of that upper peak, probably due to cancellation, so there wasn't as much. And then when I had the 212s in there, that upper range was a little bit flatter too. The overall curve was a little bit flatter, and my peak actually went up to 33 hertz. So more cone area didn't really help in terms of peak SPL, but overall it kind of smoothed out the curve. But anyway, so we're focusing on that single setup, and that's what you get, guys, right there. Let me pause real quick. Alright guys, so what I want to show you guys though is the difference when you actually change your flare. So we're gonna play with some of these parameters, so that way you could see, okay, well, what's happening with all this. I'll mess around and click around some of these bars, and we'll watch the power curve, and then we'll go back and look at the schematic and see what the shape looks like. So that way, if you guys do decide to try to build something similar, a kind of a horn design, it'll help, especially intuitively. You'd start to kind of understand, okay, now I get what this, you know, portion of the box does versus this portion. So and like I said, now that I know a little bit more about what's going on here, I kind of get an idea of what to change. So the S2, we'll change that first, and we'll look at the power. And as soon as my mouse comes back, there we go. So what I'm going to aim for, I mean, I'm pretty sure the SPL is maxed out. But what I'm gonna aim for maybe is a little bit more smoothing. If we get some more SPL here, that'd be great, but let's just try it out. So as you can see, I'm already shrinking down that S2. The curve's moving a lot. Let's look at that real quick. So let's see, what is the S2 anyway? The S2 is this portion right here. So we're shrinking down this mouth area. This is your S1, S2, S3, S4, and S5. So if we shrink that too much, we lose the low end, we're starting to lose the high end. Now that's a tiny area right there, so obviously we don't want to go too far, right? If we go too big, it's gonna increase your low end, but at a significant cost. It's probably not even worth it. Now let's shrink it down a little bit, and let's adjust our middle, our S3, and see what happens. We'll make that S3 bigger, and it's not really improving things much either. If anything, it's making it worse. It's making that dip even lower, but we are increasing on our SPL at a lower frequency. So once again, if you wanted to shoot for just SPL, you could do that. Let's exaggerate this quite a bit, not getting much of a difference. Let's go back down to where that curve looks a little bit better, and then we'll take a look at the schematic. So it looks something like that. Let's keep going further. So let's reduce our S4, see what happens. So yeah, that's not making things better either. It's spreading out the distance in that dip from the peak. And making it bigger isn't improving things much either. But it depends on what you consider improvement, right? So it is bringing that valley a little bit closer, but I mean, the size of this box now is probably not worth that gain. Keep that in mind. So sometimes it's impractical, and you gotta kind of keep check of those numbers. So what can we adjust to really get us anywhere? Let's go to our S1, S2, S3. Let's see, S1, S3, S5. So if we shrink the S1, it's not going to make much of a difference. But I've noticed it has more of a difference here on the high end, which you're probably not going to really notice anyway. You might on some of the resonances, some annoying resonances, but I haven't really noticed any of that. I'm sure some of the SQ guys know more about that. A lot of SQ guys, they do not like horns at all because of the resonances. Some people say, well, it sounds kind of horny. It has that annoying, tone to it. But I've never had anybody really explain what that really means. So right now I'm just clicking away, just so you guys can see and get an idea. Okay, I see a little difference here. Now remember, S3 is right in the middle. So now we're starting to trade off, and it's starting to flatten out a little bit more. We're losing some low end, but it's kind of it's getting closer to a more of a bandwidth that you would use for daily playing, right? All right, so let's check it out real quick. All right, so it's starting to look a little bit more like a typical horn, right? It has some shape to it, a little bit of a flare. So let's reduce the mouth there, the output mouth. I got to make sure my terminology is right. Let's see what that looks like real quick. All right, so check it out. So we're basically putting a cap on that front end there. which what's going to happen here is it's going to lower the overall tuning of this. It turns it into kind of a bass reflex box, right? So if you guys remember that it's usually the easiest to manipulate that front port, and that's what you would see there if you were to do that. So you see the tune got a little bit lower, it smoothed out a little bit more, and it definitely capped off a lot of that high end. So let's shrink it down some more. So now we're losing a lot of that high end, we're capping off a lot of the power, but that low frequency still wants to come through. Let's open it up again, make it more like a horn. Let's kind of find the middle ground there. Just messing around with the center to make the center a little bit bigger, see what happens. Bringing that dip back, probably not worth it, so alright, let's check this out. So you see that shape, guys? Kind of like a baseball bat with the heavy cap at the end. So this design right here will give you some lows, some pretty good lows. So if you want to do some heavy SPL in a very specific frequency, that's kind of the shape you want to go for. Now all these numbers are valid if you go over your point to point to point and calculate everything in. This is what you should be expecting to get. Not really usable for, you know, daily listening, unless you just want only lows. Then you might be able to get away with something like that. Give me 1 second, guys. Shake off the hands, starting to go numb. Alright, so just playing with the numbers here, guys, so you could see, getting into, you know, intuitive feel for what's happening with the shape, and then at the same time get a feel for horn response. If you were to actually try this yourself, it can get really confusing. I mean, yeah, like I said, I've been on this for a long time, and I'm just now being able to figure this stuff out, make something work here. It's why I have the confidence to be on video and do stuff like this. But let's open that output mouth there. Come on, mouse. So that's wide open. You're gonna see it's just gonna look like a horn flare at the end. Let's see. Like that. It didn't really help much. I mean, it raised the frequency quite a bit. Your valley's still there. It didn't really help that much. So at this point, there's really not much more we could do with this shape other than increase the length and then kind of try to flatten things out a little bit. You got to remember too, this is plugged in for specifically the Punisher, 10-inch Punisher. Now you really wouldn't see too much of a difference with different subs. I mean, you would, but the enclosure itself has a limit, and it's going to have a certain performance based on your subwoofer. If you were to put a weaker, smaller sub, I mean, I guess I could show you guys some of that stuff a little bit later, but yeah, I don't want to get off into a tangent. Let's just focus on the fact that it's a 10-inch Punisher right now, and then I'll do some more videos on what a different subwoofer would do in the same application. We're probably going to check out a bass reflex for an 8-inch Sundown and see what the difference is between that and an Audio Dynamics 8-inch, which is what I'm working on right now. Trying to build the perfect bass reflex box for a Sundown 8 X8 V3. and then to see what happens if I put a different subwoofer in. And in this case, it's going to be the Audio Dynamics 2000 series, 2200 series. But anyway, let's check this out some more. Let's increase the length of this horn. Let's try to max this horn out and try to get a good bandwidth out of it. Let's try that. I'm gonna just click through as fast as I can here, guys. I know these videos are pretty long, and I appreciate anybody that's tuned in and kind of, you know, interested and enjoys this content, which I know this is kind of garbage content, but hey, hopefully you learned something. I'm doing my best to just put out whatever I got for the time being, and hopefully somebody can get something out of this, and they, you know, learn how to build boxes for themselves, get really good with the program or any program for that, and share their knowledge. You know, I want you guys to hopefully share your knowledge, but if at least, you know, build some quality stuff, you know, do something new for the car audio or audio in general community, you know, make some strides, get some things done. That's what I want to see. I want to see improvements. There's a lot of car audio issues right now where it's more, you know, inflated egos and just making things bigger and selling, you know. It's all about the money, and that's a big turnoff for me, guys. I don't know about you guys, but for me, it just, I don't like it. These SPL competitions are rough, guys. I don't know if you ever been to any of them, but you know, I've heard and seen some drama. Some drama can get in there, and man, like, you wouldn't believe it. I'm not gonna name names or throw anything out there, but I've seen some drama, and I didn't enjoy that side of the car audio world. So I'm gonna try to just do my own thing, and I want to win competitions, guys. I want to just have fun, and I want to spread that knowledge to other people that are interested, especially the young, you know, the young crew. There's a whole new generation of bass enthusiasts, you know, audio enthusiasts in general, people that like this stuff. And like I said, I want to get people doing big things and creating innovation and stuff for the future. I really enjoy seeing what you wouldn't think would work, like a tiny little subwoofer to play like a 15 or an 18, which is kind of what's been happening in the last 20 years. You know, car audio kind of fell off, in my opinion. At least I didn't stick with it from 2004 all the way through maybe 2015. I didn't see any real major improvements, and all of a sudden, it just out of nowhere, it just kind of started growing again. And yeah, so here we are now. And then, like I said, I got involved about 2018. Was pretty confused as to what was a good subwoofer, which is not normal for me. I was pretty good at being able to look at a sub and go, damn, that sucker's got to be badass, right? You know, you could see the fact that the magnet is gigantic, and oh, you know, 3,000 watts. Wow, I've never heard of that, especially from like a 10 or a 12. And then you see those big giant surrounds on them, so it made it pretty easy to go, okay, that sub's got to perform, right? Well, I grabbed a few of these subs, was surprised by the performance, but also kind of shocked by some of the performance. And then efficiency was a whole nother thing. And then trying to build a box for these subs, it's all kind of unraveling right now. And right now I feel like I'm at that point where you gotta really know what you're doing, again, to make the most out of everything. Otherwise, you're just wasting power, you're wasting time, energy, money, space, everything. Like, it's all going to be a waste. So this is typically how I have fun with this program. I just click away. I do my best to kind of understand what parameters I'm changing. And just like an equalizer, guys, you kind of, you're dialing in that tone that sounds good. You got your, you know, whatever song bumping, you got your bass mechanics, your bassotronics bumping, and you're like, man, it's got some boom here, boom there. You adjust your lows, you adjust your highs. Yeah, I like that. It's kind of the same thing. So let's see. So now we got a little bit more curvy stuff going on. We have a mid bump here, and it's a little bit wider and lower. Let's see what the box itself looks like, the horn itself. So check it out. So now it's looking a little bit more like a horn, an actual horn, like a trumpet, if you were to unfold it. And that's what happens. So it's a little bit, it's shaped better for the sound itself, the frequency itself, and then the parameters of the subwoofer, the diaphragm and the power, the BL, and the weight of that mass, moving mass. And you can see what happened here is that we brought back that front portion of the sub. So let's go take a look at this horn again. So if you can see, if I were to place this the subwoofer a little bit further in, that kind of mimics that design. So the sub itself is a little bit further back within that horn, at a different position here. So it's about 2/3 of the way from this portion and 2/3 of the way from this portion, which is represented right here. Same thing, right? Maybe a little bit further than 2/3, but anyway, so it's showing you that if you position the sub in a different spot within that horn, it's gonna have an effect. Alright, so let me get out of this one. And let's go back. I believe I built a... let's see here. Let's see what this is. I don't remember. I got a lot of stuff on here. I don't remember what's what. There we go. So here's another one I designed. Let's see what the power looks like on this one. There we go. Nice and flat. Let's go to our wizard. Gotta edit. Allow edit. Loudspeaker wizard. Here we go. Let's check out the power. Nice and flat. So if you wanted a horn that was more of a daily use horn to actually listen to music and not just SPL in one range, this would be your horn right here, guys. So what I'm gonna do here now, we're still looking at just half, so it's just a single sub, and we'll keep it there for now. But alright, what happened here? We went back to that kind of a wavy pattern, right? When we started to add more power, it has that effect. Not really sure what's going on here. Interesting. Not really sure why our flat curve went away, but so you can see it's supposed to be roughly, you know, in the 140s, about 500 watts, which I know this sub can handle. It could handle 1200, and actually handle 1200 pretty consistently. I would like to get that number dialed in perfectly so I could tell you guys, yeah, for sure a Rockville can handle this much, but I can't quite do that yet. I mean, it's a 3-inch copper coil, and it's pretty dang beefy. Alright, so in this design, about 1500 watts. Says it can handle it up to about here, that 30 hertz range. We might get some peak excursion, so you might end up X-Mex right here, where you end up bottoming out in that specific frequency. So even at 1100, there we go. Now it's gone. About 1,000 watts should be playable. Let's double the cone area real quick. 1000 watts. It's showing that it's almost hitting that 150. Let's increase the power. How true that is, I really don't know. I'd have to verify that in real world testing and see what it does, but supposedly it's showing that it can handle almost 2000, which is basically 1000 per sub. Right now we're doing, this is a two sub horn, showing that it's peaking at 150, which this would be an optimized horn at this point. So in my opinion, this would be an optimized horn. It would be perfect for these subs. It would be perfect for this application. So yeah, cancel that out real quick. All right, let me take a little break. I'll be right back. All right, back again. So what I want to point out is this: for one 10-inch subwoofer, in order to get those curves that we were seeing at, keep in mind this is a 638 liter horn, and that translates to 22.5 cubic feet. Yeah, that's a big ass box for one sub. So that explains to you why this box is so big. But that's what you need if you want to couple the overall power to that diameter of a piston. If you want to couple it properly, acoustic impedance matching is what it's called. That's how much actual air mass that it takes, and that air mass has to be loaded properly. It has to be in this shape in order for those waves to come together and combine and then exit from point to point. This is what it requires, guys. This is why you won't see too many smaller bass reflex boxes putting out this kind of SPL volume, especially, you know, in a fine-tuned cabin, and all that energy being focused to one point, which is your little teeny tiny 1 millimeter sensor. Keep that in mind. SPL isn't always the overall. SPL doesn't really say anything about how loud a system is, only to how loud it is to that point. So you can have a whole bunch of subs compressing in a bass reflex box in a car, a whole bunch of subs in there, you know, 12s or whatever, and it's going to pressurize that sensor, but it's also going to pressurize everything around it. So it's a lot of energy, but a lot of that energy isn't just focused to a point. It's just everywhere. That's why you can see some of these big builds barely really registering on the SPL versus a tuned up one of those SPL vans that you see that are they got the windows all done up, and it's the whole thing is designed to focus that energy from one point straight to that sensor. And that's why you end up seeing, you know, the 174 single 8-inch, or even, you know, the single 15 doing 184 dB, like a crazy number, right? Got to keep that stuff in mind, guys. SPL isn't everything. It's not a real good way to measure how good a sub is or anything. So, all right, so here we are now. Let's see, what do I got? So in this case, I want to compare what I already have. If you guys been sticking with my videos, I have a single sundown 8-inch doing 139 dB, 139.3 at 24 hertz, and it's already been done, and it's been done with pretty much a T-line design. And what I want to do is I want to cross-reference that with a standard bass reflex box. So something you would get either custom built or maybe a prefab box. It's just a normal ported box, right? Normal ported box. Let's see what I got here. So Horn Response will generate a bass reflex box for you. So let's go see what that, let's run through that real quick. So I put in all the parameters for the Sundown Audio X8 V3, and this is what it looks like. My piston diameter is actually a little bit smaller. This probably could go to 175, but guess what? That little bit of cone area doesn't make a single bit difference. Not even a little bit. Like, it barely registers as a difference. The BL is supposed to be 25. Do I believe that? I'm not sure. I can't really reference the BL so much. The standard moving mass 321, and let's see, all these other parameters based on the suspension and so on, your resistance. So these numbers I got using the Dayton Audio. You can see back here. This is for the audio dynamics, but I do have for Sundown. But I'm using my Dayton Audio, the DATS meter, to get these numbers, and I do a lot of work, guys, to get these numbers as accurately as possible, because without good accuracy, then what's the point, right? But anyway, so horn response will generate if you go, let me allow editing. So if you go here to Design Wizard, you could choose which box to create. So you could do a sealed box, bass reflex, transmission line, or a horn. And we'll get into that stuff maybe in another video, maybe this one, I don't know. But so we do the math, do the numbers, you'll end up with something like this. It'll give you the chamber volume. In this case we have 8.3 liters, and then your port volume, which is 6.8 liters. We'll check out the overall curve on here. This is what it looks like at that low power. It's like maybe a watt or so. This is what the curve looks like. This just gives you basically what that sub would perform as far as bandwidth wise within this chamber, within this design, bass reflex. So there's like I said, there's a lot of stuff to go over here, guys. Total power. So let's look at that real quick. Let's say we design this box. I'm going, hey, well, I want to know how much SPL can I get out of this design. You can see right here I have some numbers plugged in for a ridiculous amount of power. So I know for a fact the Sundown Audio V3, the X series, can handle 5,500 watts at a short burst. Supposedly I've seen 6,600. From my tests, I know for sure it's handling about 3,000. So that's why you see this number right here. It's not going to do it all day, guys. It's going to have a limit. So 3,000 watts, you might see about 10 seconds worth. 5,000 watts, you might see 5 seconds worth. I don't know. But for sure, like I said, I'm only testing for what I know. And I'm pretty sure I got away with 3,000 watts, at least somewhere around 3,000 watts for about 10 seconds. But if we were to try to do that in this bass reflex box, it's showing in the red right here that it's gonna be limited. It's saying limited by diaphragm displacement. That means you're gonna hit X mech, you're gonna bottom out that sub, and we're gonna have problems. You might not be able to see it in the video, but right here is a teeny tiny little peak where it's showing that it might be able to handle it without bottoming out. So with this design as 26 hertz, it might actually be able to pull it off for a split second. But let's go to our wizard here and look at that same power curve. And what's cool about horn response is we can do that same thing. We could throw the power in there and then kind of just dial it down. Let's dial it down significant. So this is supposed to be an 800 RMS watt sub, which to me sounds fair. We know they can handle more usually than rated. So this is a bass reflex box, guys, and this is what I want to show you. What's important, what I think is very important. Right now we're only showing 277 watts, 260, 250. All right, there we go, 237 watts with the bass reflex box. It's running good, and it's showing you these nice SPL curves right here. So down in that 26 range, you know, about 115, 117 dB. in the 50 hertz range, right around the FS of the sub, getting maybe 122, 123 dB, and so on, right? I'm not sure about this peak. Hopefully you wouldn't see this peak or hear this peak at 100 hertz. That'd be really annoying. But anyway, let's continue on. That's 237 watts, right? That's nothing, right, guys? Especially for a sundown. But as soon as I go up to 247, let's bring it up a little more. You see these dark red lines? This is showing you guys that it's hitting X mech. That means we're going past that 19 millimeter programmed X max, and it's showing you, hey, you might want to look out. You might start bottoming out here. So in a base reflex box, this is the issue you might end up with. At about 45 hertz, 275 watts-ish, somewhere around there, you might have some trouble there. You might have some problems. Same thing on the low end. If you don't have that subsonic filter going, the infrasonic, if you don't have it dialed in below that 30 hertz range, 20, 25, 26 range, you're going to start bottoming out here. And that's barely at not even 300 watts. So what happens if we got that 500 watt sundown amp on there? You would think, oh yeah, they're perfectly matched up, right? Well, you got a base reflex box that you bought from Amazon or whatever. It's not even, it's just a standard 1 cube box with the tuned to 33 hertz or whatever, right? So now you put it on a 500 watt amp thinking, oh, it's way less than the 800 RMS that it's specified. And none of that's going to matter, guys, because you're going to be bottoming out like crazy. In the playable the range that you probably, I like that boomy bass, I like that 40 hertz to 60 hertz. You're bottoming out like crazy already. And don't even think about going low, because as soon as you get below 26, it's going to be maxing out. So for some of you guys that are, you got your ego cracking and you say, you know what, I'm going to get that sundown, 1.5K. Well, let's say we only got 1,000 watts going to it. You haven't even turned up the gains or nothing, and you're bottoming out like crazy everywhere. So that prefab box you got totally negated everything about the subwoofer that you got and the amp. You would have been better off just going lower end and sticking, staying safe. All right, so let's dial it back. So in this case now, we have a very specific box, right? Very specific. 8.3 liter chamber. This port, all designed by the program. It says it's the best you're gonna get for this subwoofer's parameters for a base reflex box, right? Let's put a different sub in there and see what happens. This is what I like about the program, is that we can take the parameters of a different sub. Right now we're going to go to the audio dynamics. We can see it has a significantly smaller cone area, a lower BL technically, a much lower mass. So that cone is super light. In comparison, almost a third lighter than the sundowns. And let's run these numbers and see what happens. Same box, you can see 8.3, 6.8. Let's look at the power. All right. So this box isn't optimized for the audio dynamics, but we just threw it in there, right? Because we have it. We have the box. We bought it already off Amazon, and you blew out your sundown. So you say, well, I got this audio dynamics right here. Let's see what happens. I'll just throw it in there just because you have it, right? You see what we got going on, guys? I don't know how accurate this program is. Like I said, I have to cross-reference it with real-world tests, but we're at 40 watts, and in that box, because we threw it in there, it's already peaking out. For sure it's going to max out in the 60 hertz range. It's going to bottom out based on the parameters of that sub. And actually, you know what? I think, let me check out the X-Mech on this. I think I was already there. Yeah, so the X-Max is super low. It's only at 10, and I think Audio Dynamics 2000 series, well, let's just say it can handle 19 millimeters of X-Max, which I don't think it can. So, all right. So at 100 watts, you're gonna start seeing bottoming out in the low end, low range. Still got a really high curve up in the upper region because of that. The mass of that cone is so light. There we go. 130 watts. We're gonna start seeing some X-Mech up in the 60 hertz range, and let's say you have that 500 watt amp. Don't even try to max it out, because you're gonna be bottoming out the whole time everywhere. So you're not even gonna see that whole max power. And the Audio Dynamics is supposed to be between 150 and 400 watts of range. I believe it's probably maybe a 500 watt RMS sub, but you typically wouldn't want to push it anything past 400, just for playability's sake. I think it's underrated for that reason. It's designed for a standard bass reflex, and because they know this is what's going to happen if you go above this wattage, that's why they underrate it. But I'm the sub dyno man. I want to know what it can do maxed out. I want to know what its maximum capabilities really are. That's why I do what I do here, guys. So we put this sub in a box that it wasn't intended for, and that's what you end up with. So let's look at the opposite. I have a design. No, don't say those, please. I have just the opposite design. I have the Audio Dynamics parameters, and I built a bass reflex box based on those parameters. And this is for a sealed. Let's get out of here. I haven't even touched on the sealed boxes. So this is the bass reflex designed for an Audio Dynamics. This program gave me these numbers, so you can see, compared to the 8.3 liters, our chamber here now is 21.5 or 21.25 liters, and our port significantly smaller, 1.9, but it has a larger port area. So it's designed for the parameters based on the Audio Dynamics sub, right? Let's look at the curve. Nice smooth curve, which would make sense. Looks like a pretty good design for all day playing. You know, it's something that for music where you want it to get typically, you know, 100 hertz on down to 30 hertz. So let's fiddle with the power so we can see what that does. Once again, if you guys are still here and you've been tuned to the whole video, I really do appreciate it. I know these videos are long, but I tried to give as much information that's useful as possible, so that you gain something out of it. So I don't want to waste your guys' time. Now, once again, I don't want to say that this program is perfect, because it might not be. I might be screwing some stuff up here. I don't know. That's where you guys come in. If you know better, if you know more, if you got a better program, better method, if you have real world tests, we got to see them. If you could do 150 dB at 18 hertz, I mean, it'd be great to know how the hell you did it, right? Or at least have some reference that says that, yeah, you did it and it's legit, like, you know, SPL competition. But anyway, so check it out. I brought my X-Max. I had it, like I said, I had it download at 10 just to be on the safe side, but I brought it up to 18, 19, which I'm pretty sure the Audio Dynamics sub can handle. I don't know for a fact. I haven't really tested it. So we start getting, you know, the suggested 150 watt range for the box that was chosen by the program. It's showing us at 157 watts we might have some issues reaching that 19 millimeters X max up in the high range. We got some good loading right here below that 50 hertz, so we should be able to get this output without problems. And if it goes below that, we might hit X max below that too. But it seems fair, right? Seems fair. We're not even really getting to that 400 watt range. Like I said, I believe this sub can handle 500 RMS like all day, no problem. It's got a copper coil, it's got a good amount of excursion, so this would be a safe design. And once again, let me show you that box. 21.25 liters on the chamber, which is a big chamber, coupled to a 1.9 liter port. You should be safe with those numbers. But let's say you blow out the audio dynamic sub. Dang it. Oh man, you blew it out, right? Oh, I'm gonna get a better sub. I'm gonna get me that Sundown X8 because it's beefy and it handles 800 watts, blah blah blah, right? So let's do that. We have the program to do this. Plug in those numbers. Here we are, back to that slightly under. It's probably a 175 cone. Higher BL, supposedly. Bigger mass. Let's crunch the numbers. See what it does. Same box. Let's look at the power. Look at that power curve, guys, compared to the other flatter one. Right? Looks better. Now, let me show you something here, guys, real quick. We'll keep this on record here. We'll switch back real quick to the audio dynamics. Crunch the number. This is about 1 watt's worth of power, guys. So this is the audio dynamics. It doesn't look as good as the last one, right? Check it out. The lower one right here, you hopefully you can see it in the video, but this was the Sundown. It's actually providing you less power than what the audio dynamics could have done on the same wattage. And at the same time, the audio dynamics was actually giving you a flatter response up in the higher range. This is the difference between efficiency, a softer suspension, and so on and so on. But that isn't the be all, right? That isn't the end game here, because the Sundown is a much more, it's a beefier sub, right? It has more travel, more coil power, so on and so on, right? It's supposed to have more BL. It's supposed to be yeah, a bigger, better sub, right? But as you can see, that when it comes to efficiency, you know, that might be a better choice for you guys. But let's go back. So now we have that box designed for an audio dynamics sub. Instead, because we blew out that sub, we're gonna put a nice beefy Sundown in there. Now let's look at the curve. And I hope you guys are following. I hope I'm not getting too confusing. I know, like I said, there's a lot of information, a whole bunch of stuff. But that's what I'm trying to do here, is to clarify as much of it as possible and to go over it with you guys, give you real world homework here on the program, and then put it to the test when we throw the stuff in the cabin itself, in the vehicle itself. All right, so we have now our Sundown in a prefab that was designed for audio dynamics, a much bigger chamber. So let's bring down that wattage quite a bit. So we know our Sundown is good for 800 RMS, no problemo, right? No problemo. We know it's got 19 millimeters X max for sure, maybe even more. So what happens if we have this box that had a large chamber, but with this subwoofer? So we see that it can handle that 170 watts, no problems, doing good. Where does it start giving us problems? Here we go, about 300 watts. 283 watts, let's just say 300. Now we're starting to get some problems in that 40 to 60 hertz range. We might have some XMAC. And remind you guys, 19 millimeters, that sub is moving. So let's say screw it, you know, we're gonna go full go. The good news is you'll still get some good lows as long as you don't have that EQ pushing, that higher range. You might be able to just drop that EQ up on the the 40 to 60 hertz range and just really shoot for the low range. Turn your EQ up on the lows at 30 hertz, bring it all the way up. You should still be okay under 500 watts. You might not see any of that bottoming out there. You got your subsonic stuff, your infrasonic capped off right here, so you're not worried about the lows below 30 hertz anyway. You should be okay. Everything's going good, right? Unless you have that that 1.5K amplifier on there and you start pushing 1000 watts. You still might be okay right at that 30 hertz. Let's say you want to do some SPL, you're starting to burp it in the lanes. You might be able to get some power there. As long as you don't overdo it, you might be safe. As long as you don't go above or below that tuning frequency, you should be okay. Let's take it up, see how far it goes before we end up with real problems. Yeah, maybe 1100, 1200 watts. There we go. Now we have issues, but pretty good, pretty cool. But not really. In reality, you just got lucky. You got away with the scenario. You put a bigger sub. It feels like, okay, well, that was the answer to your problem, but not really. The answer is to dial that bass reflex in just right. But in reality, when it comes to a subwoofer like the Sundown, you're very limited. You're very limited. So let's go back. We're gonna keep pushing through. We're at an hour, guys. I appreciate you if you watched the whole video. Hopefully you got something to munch on and enjoy this. So let's no, don't save, don't ruin my whole setup here. So alright, so now we're back with the Sundown, and what I want to show you guys is what is the most optimum enclosure for this Sundown. I mean, optimum is kind of a stretch because you could say optimum for SPL, you could say optimum for bandwidth, optimum for efficiency. But we'll go over these different possibilities. So what did I do here? Alright, so we're back to the T-line, and I believe this is optimum for this sub for SPL in the low range. This is a giant T-line. As you can see, it's 121 liters. I'll let you guys do the math on that one. Alright, so you guys know T-lines are notorious for double peaks and huge valley. But if you wanted to go SPL at low frequency, this guy is tuned for 22.9 hertz, so roughly 23 hertz. So let's look at the power, max power. I gotta allow editing. Alright, loudspeaker wizard. Looking at the power. Alright. So like I said, I've already previously, I sat here for hours messing and clicking and trying to maximize this design, like I said, for 23 hertz. How much can I get out of this one little 8-inch sub, right? Down at that one specific peak. Very, very specific peak. We're going to the lanes, we're competing, we're just trying to show off what we could do. You can see this curve goes all the way to 145. That's 145 dB, guys, with a single sub at 23 hertz. And right now we're at 2,680 watts. And like I told you guys before, supposedly this one little Sundown 8 can handle up to 5,000. Maybe I've even seen 6,000, supposedly 6,600. And in my test so far, I know I've only maybe achieved 3,000. I don't want to push it any further because I don't want to blow out the sub. That's why I'm doing this, the math right here, guys. So as you can see, I'm dialing it up, 2,700 watts. Now we're gonna start having issues, probably bottom out. So I wouldn't want to take it above that in this design. But you can see that it can handle it. It can give you that power. This is optimization for SPL, one specific frequency. So let's see what else we got here. Alright, this is another SPL. It's a 56 liters, so this is a much smaller box, or T-line. As you can see, it's pretty much just a straight tube, right? And some of you guys out there have done those straight tube designs, straight T-lines, and a lot of people say good things about them. Oh yeah, it's a lot of power, you know, it's boomy or whatever. It sounds great. What am I doing here? Focus, man. Loudspeaker wizard. Yes, I do. So this is a peaky SPL T-line, very high frequency, right around the FS of the sub. Well, actually probably a little bit higher than the FS, but if you wanted to compete, once again, like I say, you want to compete, get out there in the lanes, push this sub to its maximum potential, you'd build this T-line just like this. You'd have roughly a 58 hertz horn, or not horn, a 58 hertz blaster here. It would just kill at that frequency. You should be able to push. It's showing, guys, 150 dB at almost 60 hertz, 58, somewhere around there. 2,800 watts. There you go. Will it work? I don't know. I've seen people push that sub pretty hard. Alright, so let me take another break, guys. We're just gonna keep on trucking till I lose ideas here. Hold on. Alright. So this is what I really want to get into, guys, is maximum performance. So if you guys remember, I told you you can pretty much generate an enclosure using horn response automatically. And what you do is, once you've done plugged in all the parameters for your sub, assuming that all the parameters are perfect, you know, so let's take a look at what that would be like. So you go to your TS parameters, you would fill in all the blanks, and it's a lot more difficult than what it looks like here, because you'll have some of these bars that are related to each other that'll move around a lot, so it gets pretty difficult to balance everything out. And then hopefully, like I said, assuming that these numbers are even correct, assuming that those TS parameters were done properly, you can end up with different things. So I'm not sure how much that affects things, but that's why I have the Dayton Audio tester. That's why I try my best to, you know, go over the numbers over and over and over again and verify them, and, you know, just to make sure, because if your TS parameters aren't correct, you're gonna design a box that it's not gonna do what it's supposed to do, and then your sub's not gonna do what you expected it to do. So there's a lot of variables that can change, you know. The big ones are gonna be, well, in this case, when it comes to calculating, your resistance is gonna be a big deal. Your cone area, surprisingly enough, I mean, you could be off by quite a bit, and it really won't have much of an effect. That's how I know cone area really doesn't make a difference. A lot of people are saying cone area is king, blah blah blah. I can't stand that. I mean, in an application where everything is coming from your cone, so like a sealed sub design, or maybe an infinite baffle, yeah, cone area might have a difference, but not 5 centimeters, square. Not that teeny tiny little, difference between a 10 and a 12 really won't make much of a difference. Now, when it's ported and it's done correctly, it might make a little bit of a difference from like a 15 to an 18. But we'll get into the cone area stuff a little bit later. Just know, guys, that a tiny little bit isn't going to do much. What will do a lot is going to be your overall power, your efficiency, your BL, and even BL. BL really doesn't, it's not going to give a significant difference in efficiency, maybe. But like I said, that's another one that you have to we'll have to go over that as well. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say about the parameters. But that's what the whole point of these videos are for, to kind of get an idea. I haven't even got into the parameters. We're just in the enclosure portion of variables. So, but anyway, so you would want to hope that all your numbers are correct, and then you can go into horn response, use the tool, the design wizard, and you could do a sealed box. You could do a base reflex, which is your standard, off-the-shelf ported box. You could do a transmission line, which is more of a tube design, very basic. And then you can do a horn, one of the most difficult enclosures to design. We'll do that right now. We'll click on it just so you guys can see what that looks like. And what I want to show you guys is what maximum efficiency and power and SPL, when you bring all those numbers together to get the most effective enclosure design, a horn is going to be number one. Now, is it going to be sound quality? I don't know. I can't tell you, because sound quality falls into a whole different category, and I hope to do a video on what that means, but one thing at a time. So you're going to see, though, the size of this horn is ridiculous. And if you guys have the chance, go over to my channel, go to my playlist, and check out Speaker Science, the playlist Speaker Science. You'll see a whole bunch of cool relative videos about just everything that should help you understand more about enclosure design and just everything. But what I want you guys to check out, there's some Japanese horns that are reflecting what we're going to see right here, and you'll see why they design what they do the way they do for this very reason. So I want you guys to see the system volume. Look at the size of this horn. It's 4,030 liters. 4,000. What does that equate to in cubic feet? That is 142 cubic feet for 1 8-inch. That's a gigantic enclosure, right, guys? Huge. And you could kind of see here, it's actually a 4th order horn. It has a tiny little rear chamber that's sealed, and I can't even click on it to see what size it is, but it's barely a 1.4 liter. I mean, it's a teeny tiny little box. So, but let's look at the curve. Look at that, guys. This is typical from a well-designed horn. You end up with this nice curve. I mean, it's a little bit lumpy here. You probably wouldn't notice that too much. You'd be able to smooth that out with your EQ, your DSP. But look at that curve. I plugged in the numbers for 20 hertz all the way up to 200 hertz, and this is what you end up with, a nice flat curve. But that's why you guys need, that's why you need that space, that's why you need that shape in order to get this curve. Now let's look at the maximum SPL that we can achieve if we were to take this driver and give it as much power as it can possibly handle. It takes a long time to calculate that. It's a lot of numbers there. And bam! Look at this. This is 145 dB, guys. This line is 145 dB. So we're gonna see out of one single 8-inch the maximum potential bandwidth and SPL and efficiency right here. And you can see the red. The red means you're gonna start to get that over excursion, so the sub's gonna start bottoming out. So we definitely don't want to go over on that power in this area. But look at that, this is 145 dB, saying it's limited by diaphragm displacement. So that's that 19mm X max, and I'm pretty sure the Sundown can handle a little bit more than that. So we might be able to get away with that. But anyway, we're not trying to go too far here. I just want you guys to see what a well-designed horn would actually do, right? And once again, this is the design wizard. It generated that based on the parameters of the sub. So if we change those parameters, you're going to get a different horn shape, different horn design. Let's see here, what can we do now? Let's just lower our power a little bit to something more reasonable. Let's say we do want to just run it at that 800 watts RMS that we know for sure the sub could handle. What would our power look like? And man, if any of you guys actually watched this whole video, I really do appreciate it. You know, throw something in the comments saying, yeah, I watched the whole video, man. Like, I'm gonna remember whoever is out there. And I comment a lot. I talk to as many people as I can about as much information as possible. I'll throw a bunch of stuff out there, and I listen, I pay attention, and I remember who's who. So that's going to be important later on in the game. So feel free to comment. You know, tell me what you want to see, what you disagree with, anything. Just comment, guys, and I want to know, because I mean, you made it to a whole hour-long video plus. I mean, that means a lot to me. So, but anyway, so now we're at that 800 watts stable, RMS for this sub. We're still achieving really loud SPL numbers, and we're doing this in a very long range, from 100 to let's say reasonable 26 hertz. That's pretty dang good. Now let's do the same thing, but let's do it for the audio dynamic sub this time, and then I think we'll call it with this one. I still got plenty more to go through, but yeah, like I said, guys, this stuff takes a lot of effort from my end, and you can see, I mean, the program it's got a learning curve. It takes quite a bit. But that's why I'm here, to show you right here in real time what it takes to actually do this. So hopefully you guys can play with it yourself, get an idea of how to really dial in those enclosures, because I want to see what you guys can do. There's plenty of people out there that do way better stuff than I do, for sure. And let's go guys. Let's bring back the audio world. Let's bring back the audio community. Let's inspire a new generation, right? Let's max out the SPL. I'm gonna raise that maximum X max on this audio dynamic sub. Let's say 19. Let's assume that it can handle that at 400 watts. What do we get? Can she handle it? I have some plans, guys. I have two audio dynamic 8-inch subs, and I want to do them isobaric, and I want to see what I can do with them. So with one of these little subs at 400 watts, this is our curve, guys. We're almost hitting that 140. Do I believe that? I don't know. At 400 watts, I don't know. That's hard to believe. But I mean, the program is supposed to give you. It's supposed to give you this this data based on everything. Let's say we're gonna push that audio dynamics as far as we can get it. Let's say it could handle 800 watts RMS, which it doesn't say. It doesn't say the RMS rating. It says 150 to 400 is the range that it's designed for. And based on the numbers here, we should be good as far as XMEC goes. Will the coil handle it? I don't know. 800 watts, that's pretty dang good. I mean, we're going above 140 SPL. So I hope so. I'm gonna eventually get to this point to where I can build an enclosure and test these things out, but for now we're just doing the numbers to see what happens. But that's it for this one, guys. I'll probably do another one with similar, you know, click here, click there, and just to get an idea. I want to do more about the base reflex, but we'll call it for this one. An hour and 20 minutes is a long video, so if you guys, like I said, stayed with me the whole way, please comment. Give me some direction. If you have a specific box, I'll plug it in there and we'll go over the numbers, and we'll see what we got. But yeah, appreciate you guys. Till the next one.